Alright, hello everybody. So today I'm going to talk about what I think everybody will experience at least once in their life if they haven't already, or at least should know a little bit about them. And that's credit card contracts and kind of just what you get into when you sign up for one and the hidden things they don't want you to see all the time and the things you probably should see. So first of all, I'll just go over the basic credit card definition. A credit card is a payment card issued to users as a system of payment. It allows the cardholder to pay for goods and services based on the holder's promise to pay for them. The issuer of the card creates a revolving account and grants a line of credit to the cardholder, from which the user can borrow money for the payment to a merchant or as a cash advance. So a credit card has multiple uses, as I said, either to pay for something you want, or you can take cash out like a debit card, or you can also transfer your balance of an old loan or credit card to this card. So what this contract means to you, I'll just go over some basic terms that probably should know when you're reading it. So first is just interest rate, or APR. So that's the rate at which you're going to be charged on top of spending, unless you pay off the whole balance, usually at the end of the month or the pay cycle. So this national average is about 15.3 right now, and it's kind of important to know this because if you spend $100 and you don't pay it off, that $100 turns to $115, and if you keep not paying it off or just paying off the minimum, it's going to grow and grow at a pretty high rate of 15%, or if your credit score is not as good, that'll be increased to 20%, or so on and so forth. The next thing you should know about is grace periods. This is when you have time to pay your bill and how many days you have. So they have to give you warning when your bill is posted, and then you have usually between 21 and 31 days to pay off before the interest rate is put on top of that balance. And then your credit line is the max you're allowed to put on a card, so it could be $1,000, it could be anything depending on your credit score. Withdrawal max is the cash advance max. This is what you can take out from the ATM, from like using it as a debit card. But the thing is, if you take out money from a credit card, getting a cash advance, the interest rate's going to be a lot higher on that, and that does go against your credit line. Balance transfers I kind of touched on, and that's the amount, interest rate, and time frame you will have to pay off a transferred balance. So let's say you have an old credit card that has a really bad interest rate on it for some reason, and you have a balance on it. You want to transfer that balance to this new credit card because it's got a better interest rate. That's going to actually cost you more money in the end because they're going to hike that interest rate up because it's not their balance, and it makes you more unreliable to pay back. So just go over that stuff if you ever go through it. Minimum payment is the amount due at the end of the pay cycle, no matter the charges. Unless the charge is less than the minimum, then you just pay that off. And that's pretty important to know because sometimes they can stick it to you with those, or it's really low and you think you only have to pay off the really low amount of the minimum payment, but they kind of make it low to entice you to not pay it off so they can get the interest rate. And then the last thing is just any added benefits. Nowadays, there's so many credit cards that are competing for each other. They have to add separate things. So you've got flyer miles, cash back. So if you spend money on gas, you get 2% cash back. Better interest rates for students who get good grades, for people who pay off their balance monthly. And the list goes on, from get free Amazon shipping now, and they make deals with stores. So the next thing I'll show you is a video, just kind of to understand how credit works.
The book on credit cards is filled with many terms and phrases. In recent years, the government and financial institutions have taken steps to make your monthly statements more easily understood. Still, there are some terms that may require explanation. Let's look at some of the key ones. Annual percentage rate, or APR, is basically the interest rate that you'll pay on an unpaid balance. The finance charge isn't the APR. Instead, it's the total dollar cost to borrowing money, including interest and fees. A card issuer is any financial institution, such as a credit union or bank, that issues plastic credit cards. The annual fee is the yearly charge for having a credit card. Sometimes this fee is assessed in monthly installments. Grace period. Most cards grant you this period of time to pay off your purchase without accruing interest. The billing cycle is the time between billing statements, and that's typically between 28 and 31 days. Remember, you can make payments on your credit card anytime. You don't have to wait for your monthly statement to arrive. Average daily balance. This is the method most credit cards use to calculate your interest. It's determined by adding each day's balance and then dividing that total by the number of days in the billing cycle. To clarify, interest is based on the average daily balance, not the remaining balance after you've made a payment. A cash advance fee is charged when you get cash with your credit card or when you move money from your card's account to another account. Often, there is no grace period for this type of transaction, so interest starts accruing immediately. A cosigner is someone who signs an agreement to pay off a loan in the event the primary signer does not pay it. Join me in video 3 to learn about traditional and rewards cards.
So I hope that video just gave you kind of a more broader explanation. It touched on things that I didn't touch on, and it also touched on things that I did, just to kind of reinforce you about it. So next slide will be, let's see, there we go. What stands these contracts apart from different contracts that we've learned about in this unit or read in the book? Well, this is not a normal contract where you can negotiate, as some are. This is pretty much terms of use. It can be looked at like the iTunes contract we went over. And just like the iTunes contract we went over, we were kind of surprised by what was in it. Well, I was surprised by what was in just a little bit of the credit card contracts I've read. There's some hidden things that you should be aware of before you sign and make sure you agree with. Or if you're like the iTunes like me, I don't read and I just sign, and maybe it'll come back and be bad for me. So another thing that's kind of getting in the news for these past couple years is credit card contracts are said to be the hardest contract that a normal American will ever read or have to understand. And that's because it's written at a 12.67 reading level. There's a random Jeopardy fact. But the normal American reads at a 9th grade level. So this is obviously almost 4 levels higher than that. And this has caused much debate, which I will talk about in the Credit Card Act of 2009, which was one of the most reforming acts for credit cards. And formally, this is to establish fair and transparent practices related to the extension of credit under an open and consumer credit plan. So just in layman's terms, the credit companies must give at least 21 days to pay bills. They used to only give weeks. They didn't tell you when your bill was available to be paid off, and it just made a lot of confusion. Give 45 days notice to increase rates. So this pretty much killed off the fixed credit card interest rates. So there used to be fixed credit card interest rates and variable interest rates. And obviously the fixed is higher interest rate, but it was for a long term, so it didn't matter. But now after the 45 days, it's usually variable interest rates, which brings your interest rate down a little bit. Must pay off the highest interest rate line first. So if you have 2 balances on it, and one has a 15% and one has a 10%, they have to put the money towards the 15%. That saves you money in the long run and costs them money. And then they cannot market to people under 21. So as a kid, I remember watching TV shows where 16-year-olds got credit cards, and they can't do that anymore. Kind of a big deal, because then a 16-year-old wants a credit card and they don't really understand the effects it can have on your future and your cosigner's future. And there's actually one in the works right now. Not many details on it, but again, it's just to make credit cards easier to understand. So lastly, I'll just go over things just before you sign. You should know what you're signing up for. As the picture shows, there's probably some fees in there, like an annual fee or a late fee, that you should just take in mind and see if you can afford it and want it. Make sure it's the card for you. There's so many cards out there. Make sure this is the one that you think is going to fit your life the best. If you never fly, you don't really need a frequent flyer miles credit card. Understand the damages it can have in your future. As I said, credit score affects a lot of things, so just know what you're getting into before you do it, and then know how you will budget it. I've learned with my credit card that budgeting can get a little hard because you forget sometimes, so just make sure you're really sure about how you're going to spend the money on it. Well, I thank you and hope you learned a lot from this presentation.